Hello, hello, hello. It is the Mio on MMA podcast time. Talking about UFC Denver, and I do want to touch on two things really quickly here that relate to the card, but are not like the card themselves. Number one is obviously we had the, we're just going to call it the Donald Trump incident on the same day as the card. And Twitter was ablaze with the idea of like, oh my God, Donald Trump is going to show up to UFC Denver. That was insane. I have no idea. I have no idea why, like, regardless of your personal political affiliation, beliefs, and so on, that you would think that that is actually a good thing. Because if you're pro-Trump, the man just got shot and should not be flying from Pennsylvania to Colorado to attend a fight card. Just shouldn't happen. Shouldn't be there. It's Thug Rose versus Tracy Cortez in the main event. There's no reason for that. And if you're, like myself, a little bit more on the anti-Trump end, you honestly wish he would just stay away from the UFC events entirely. So that was a bit weird. And the second weird thing is the Tracy Cortez weight situation. So she came to the scales and was like, I forget if it was a half pound or a pound and a half over. Forget which. One or the other. A little over. Nothing ridiculous. You have an extra 30 minutes to go make the weight, whatever the case may be. And she comes back with the hair cut off and makes weight, so on. Poses with the hair on the scale and whatever. I found this like very bizarre. Not from Cortez's camp, because apparently her brother died of cancer. Hair loss, cancer. These are, highly related things I can relate. And, whatever. She's emotional, whatever. The weird thing was, well, two things. On one side, you had the people who were like, why would she weigh in with the hair in her hand? Why not just leave it on the head? Okay, guys, the UFC has, for the longest time, done weigh in and then, like, pose for the camera ceremonial weigh in. Like, these are two different things. We know this. Everyone does this. Slightly insane. Slightly dumb. Don't know why people got lost on that. And on the other side, oh my God, she's so brave to have cut off hair to make weight. This is the most badass thing I've ever seen. Tracy Cortez is a badass. No, she's not. Has not. I don't know. It's weird because through my life, I've done a fair amount of weight cutting. I've helped other people weight cut, so on. I've been to weigh-ins, so on. I'm not going to say that it happens every single time because it does not. I'm not going to say it's even a particularly common occurrence. But we know people chop off hair to make weight. Like, that's not unheard of. The best example I have is Daniel Strauss, Bellator fighter who used to have like the thick dreadlock, like braided hair. And one time he was overweight and he just said, give me the scissors. And went and started hacking away at it. That's actually kind of badass because that hair is hard to cut. But we have seen people shave their heads. When I was in school and doing wrestling and around the wrestling team, if somebody said something about like not being able to make weight, coach, I'm a little over. I'm worried. You know what was suggested? Hey, you got some curls there. Like, why don't we start there? It's so weird. And I mean, the hair was cut artfully and whatever. It's like, I don't know. It's probably a big deal for Cortez because apparently she wears fake eyelashes while she's fighting. We learned that. And we'll talk about that. Sadly, that might be the most interesting thing about the fight. All right, so UFC Denver, I'm pulling up the card here real quick. I went 6-4-1. There was a 7-4-1, maybe? Hang on, wins. Thug Rose won. Bonfim won. Jasmine won. Jackson won. Santos won. Petrosky won. Elder won. Yeah, okay, so 7-4-1 with the no contest between Brundage and Razak Al Hassan, which realistically should probably be a loss because I picked Brundage and there was no part of that fight he was winning. So a decent but not great night at the office in terms of picks. And there were a couple of fights that I very much got very, very wrong. The Jean Silva Drew Dober fight, that I got wrong. Arosa versus Christian Rodriguez. Don't get me wrong, it ended in the way that, like, Rosa wins fights, but I don't know. Something in me like just said, you know what? Rodriguez probably can't be choked by Rosa, and then he got guillotined. So I have to wear that as a wrong. Charles Johnson, Joshua Van didn't go quite like I expected. Started the night real hot. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 fights in a row won, and then coasted down the stretch to not very good. Let's talk about the main event. Thug Rose, Namajunas versus Tracy Cortez. There's not a lot to say about this fight. Thug Rose outstruck and out-wrestled Cortez pretty much the entire fight. I had her winning rounds 1 through 4. You could give her the 5th round, and I wouldn't object at all. I did give Cortez the 5th round, but that is the most generous scorecard I've got. Also, let me see here real quick, because one of the judges gave Cortez 2 rounds, and I'm curious. No, MMA Decision still doesn't have the cards up. I'm going to assume it was probably the 4th round, but realistically, even in the 4th round, Thug Rose had more control of the grappling, outlanded Cortez. Cortez was credited with 1 extra significant strike. I don't know. I guess I can't be mad about scoring that round for Cortez, but it's not a very good round. So this has led to a lot of conversation about, like, is Tracy Cortez any good? Which I don't really get. Cortez took this fight on short notice against a hometown fighter at altitude. Like, it's a big deal when you fight at altitude, especially against somebody who is training there regularly. Not a native. I'm pretty sure Thug Rose is from the Midwest by birth. Am I not correct on that? Yeah, Milwaukee, Wisconsin. So, from Wisconsin, which is not exactly altitude, but has been training out of Denver, Colorado for some time. And you take it on short notice, that's not good. Like, Cortez was playing with house money. There was nothing to lose. The only thing I think we learned about her is that apparently in the first round when she got dropped by Thug Rose, one of her lashes came off, and may have actually been what cut her eyelid. I don't know. I was unsure what cut the eyelid, but anyways, not all the way through or anything. Not like just marked up the eyelid. But yeah, I don't know. She's playing with house money. She's still, I think, a highly limited fighter because she's 30 years old and has not realistically progressed in her grappling at all. Like, she's still a good top control grappler with scrambling, but there's no finishing element. She hasn't added venomous ground and pound or a submission game to her game. And while her striking is better, it's still not going to beat anybody that is actually a striker. So this limits her in a big way that she's not going to be a title challenger, I don't think. But she is probably a top 15, maybe even top 10 fighter just on raw physicality. Because MMA is still in that place. Mostly because fighter pay is garbage. That, just being pretty above average physically, above most of your opposition, will grant you a fair amount of wins. I was talking with someone on Twitter who was like, what is Cortez even good at? I'm like, wrestling. Oh, but she doesn't finish anyone. It doesn't matter. Wrestling's not about finishing anyone. If you watch college wrestling, there's no ground and pound. There's no submissions. That is something that usually we'd like to see tacked on. And yeah, sure, I would, like I said, would love to see a 30-year-old fighter with 7 years professionally and something like 13 years total. 11 years. 11 years of even amateur combat. I would like to have seen her develop some kind of finishing game. And it never came along. She fought Maria Agapova on the Contender Series, managed to ground her for a fair bit and did not finish her. And we're going to talk about Maria Agapova later, but Maria Agapova is somebody who panic grapples and absolutely 100%, if you can dominate her, should get finished. But anyways, still playing with house money, and I think I don't know. My opinion of Cortez as a fighter just isn't changed. So I'm a little bit puzzled by people who did in this fight come to some kind of revelation about her. So there you go. Anyways, for next opponents, Thug Rose called out for a title shot. I don't think so. She talked about maybe facing Valentina. Valentina loses to Grasso. I could see that. She talked about a women's BMF belt. No, number one, I just don't think we're going to get that. Number two, I don't think it'd be Rose. Not in the last little bit. Like, since her Carla Esparza fight, she's been kind of timid and just not really like of the BMF variety. Like, she's not been a nonstop action fighter. Her win over Hibosh was reserved. Even in this fight, she largely avoided contact in the 5th round, which was smart, but it's not BMF. And then, of course, you have the Esparza fight. So, like, and even the Manon Fiorot fight is, it was, BMF to be fighting with the screwed up finger, but I don't know. Not really. She's not who I would pick for that. So realistically, I think the answer is she's just going to get Macy Barber in a rebook, because that was what this fight was supposed to be. Cortez I've got against Karine Silva because that appeals to me. Silva is a very physically imposing fighter who is dangerous, but not necessarily well structured. And Cortez is the opposite. Physically imposing still, but like very structured, but not dangerous. There's a certain dichotomy there that I kind of want to see. The co-main event between Santiago Ponzinibbio and Muslim Salikhov was not very good. It was fine, but you put two guys who are 40 and 37 against each other at altitude and expected it to be like a really good fight. I don't know. I said it. I liked the booking. I liked the old man on old man fight. I enjoy that. I'm going to advocate for similar fights for them next time out. But I don't think you do it at Elevation. I scored the fight live for Ponzinibbio. I think a lot of people did. I'm actually kind of interested. What was the breakdown from the standpoint of the media? Mostly Ponzinibbio. Danny Segura went Ponzinibbio. Dane Fox, Keith Schillen, Val Dewar. Which, by the way, if you do not watch the Cage Side Press stuff, it's fun. Jake Knocker, Dan Levy, Tyler Trees, Tristan Critchfield, Jay Petrie. There were a couple Salikhovs, Paul Fontaine from the Wrestling Observer and Ryan Frederick from the Wrestling Observer. MMA Vivisection's Zane Simon, which is my favorite podcast, and MMA.Uno Steve Duncan all scored it for Salikhov, but predominantly a Ponzinibbio card, including a 30-27, which I think 30-27 either way was pretty on offer, because realistically speaking, not a lot happened. And I'm just going to turn to the stats here to kind of make my point. They landed respectively 46 and 41 significant strikes, with Salikhov having the edge. He was +3 in the first round. Ponzinibbio was +2 in the second round, and +4 for Salikhov in the fourth round. There were a couple takedowns from Ponzinibbio that didn't really go anywhere. He was 2 for 5 with 2.5 minutes of top control. I don't think that really factors into the scoring at all. But like I said, scored it for Ponzinibbio. No problem with it being Salikhov. It was just a bad venue for this fight. And Salikhov I got against Max Griffin. Ponzinibbio I've got against Tim Means. Jean Silva versus Drew Dober. Silva beat this man up. I had him up 2-0. He was landing pretty freely on Dober anytime Silva was on the front foot and even on the counter occasionally. I would still say that Silva is more of a dedicated front foot fighter than you would like to see. And I do kind of wonder if somebody has the physicality and the speed to force him onto the back foot. Does it work? That's kind of my question. But he went out there and he pieced up Dober pretty badly. He was outlanding him. He was hitting him very, very hard. Busted up a massive cut over his eye, which eventually did stop the fight because Dober was a bloody mess in the third round. Fantastic effort by Jean Silva. I still find the post-fight a little bit cringy because he's kind of like weirdly overly emotional and the whole nerd gimmick. I'm not here for it. That's all I can say. But a phenomenal performance, a weight class up, 2 weeks after beating Charles Jourdain. It's a heck of a 2 weeks. People are saying like he's a contender and stuff. I don't know about that. I mean, we've known that Jourdain is a pretty limited fighter for like quite some time. And we know that Dober is a fairly limited fighter. Admittedly not in this way, but like Dober's durability has gone downhill. His defense has never been special. He relied on his durability. That durability is not really there. So I don't know. I would say hold your horses if you're like Jean Silva, not a prospect. He's a contender now. I also would say he's a prospect. 27 years old. I've always said this. My top end window for prospects is like 26, unless they start very, very late. Someone like a Bo Nickel, theoretically too old to be a prospect, but new to the MMA scene with a deep reservoir of one skill set, and he'll pick it up. So it's a little case by case, but like I think at 27 years old, we more or less know. I don't know. I want to say we know what John Silva is, but like he is what he is. I don't think that there's going to be any massive improvement we see from Silva moving forward. I think is going to be more to do with the fact that he's mostly just wrecking people and we're not seeing his full skill set rather than actual new tools being developed onto it. But that's just my opinion. I've got him against David Onama. I think that would be a fun fight. You could do more. You could give him a ranked featherweight and it wouldn't be a problem. He'd just be Dober. That's a big deal. That's a big milestone. But if we're doing it my way, I'm looking at this as a short notice fight win to a certain degree, and I'm giving him an Onama who's like a step up and somebody who can bring a physicality game to him. Dober has a probably decently long layoff ahead of him. That was a deep cut. But Drakkar Klose, which I never thought I'd say, but that appears to be like actually a really fun fight. They're both guys who are kind of like short at lightweight. They both throw bombs. They are action fighters, and I cannot see that being a boring fight. So make it happen, because Dober didn't really have a call out. Like he's a anywhere, anytime kind of guy. Then we have Gabriel Bonfim versus Angelosa. I did not like this fight, not because it was bad, but because Angelosa went, and this was very clearly the game plan because his corner was yelling about this the entire fight. Like there was never a moment where the corner told him to stop wrestling or to kind of do something. I don't like wrestling first Angelosa because the man is 30 years old, has historically not been a wrestler, and you're trying to turn him into this because the Bryan Battle fight went as badly as it did. It feels like a very big overcorrection. And Bonfim was able to get up when he was taken down without too much issue. What was the control time here? I'm just kind of curious if there really even was any, to be honest. 2 minutes 35 seconds of control time off of 4 takedowns, 3 of them in the first round, which led to 2 minutes and 7 seconds. That's not good. And he did very, very little with the top control. Bonfim was hitting him more from the bottom than he was from the top. It was kind of like the Ponzinibbio control time. It shouldn't have mattered. Apparently, Judge Deem Mbita gave a round to your boy Losa, and I do not even know what round it would have been. Let me see here. Do we have that scorecard up? We do. He gave him the first. I mean, I guess that is the round to go with because, he got the takedowns, whatever. But you spend 2 minutes on top and get outlanded? I don't know about that. Anyways, Bonfim outworked him. I don't really know if I'm like won over by Bonfim. I was just struck by how bad of a performance by Angelosa this was, which is sad. For next opponents, I've got Bonfim versus Eliza Zaleski and Losa. Perfect world. Long layoff of 6 months in the gym trying to figure out what's going on here. Trying to figure out if there is even an answer. Because I've said this repetitively, MMA does not pay enough and damages your body so much that if you're not going to be enjoying the fight, which I don't think he is, and if you're not climbing to something, I think it is better off to go away. I'm not going to tell him to retire. Number one, I don't have that about power. I somehow doubt that me telling a fighter to retire has ever resulted in a actual outcome. But I don't know. There's some soul searching to be done here. There's some training to be done here. I don't know. I do wonder if maybe like I'm a big fan of Henry Hoof's team. I'm a big fan of Kill Cliff in terms of their process, but I do wonder if Losa just came to them like far too late to really make this a thing. And I think it also requires a certain type of person. So I don't have an opponent for him because he just seems like a lost soul. Christian Rodriguez was looking reasonably good in his fight against Julian Erosa. He looked like the sharper striker, in my opinion. And he was apparently behind on strikes landed. That's a little bit less than ideal. But like there were some issues with the reach of Erosa. Obviously, he's a 6'1" guy. Like it's a big deal. It's a weight class that you don't generally see, or a size you don't generally see at featherweight. And Rodriguez is already a guy who probably really should be at bantamweight. So there were some size issues, but I thought when he got on the pressure, when he got on the inside, he was doing a good job. Now Erosa was hurting him, hit him with an elbow at one point that rocked him, I thought. And then, eventually Erosa catches a Rodriguez kick, dumps him to the canvas, takes his back. Rodriguez out-scrambles him because he's a phenomenal scrambler, but he's right into a guillotine. Erosa finishes off the guillotine because he is a phenomenal front headlock guy. Darce chokes, guillotines, these are his thing. He gets the win, gets the tap out. Good for him. Erosa versus Sean Woodson feels like a fight that should have already happened. Rodriguez kind of is in the case of like, I kind of want to see him take some time off and kind of sort this whole weight cut thing out because he should be at bantamweight. He's not big enough for 45. Now, if I must book him at 45, I must give him something. Him versus Jamal Emmers would be a battle of two of my favorite like technical guys, and I'd be down for that. So there's no sadness of seeing Rodriguez fight, because he's very, very capable and everything. It's just, it does really feel like this is a case of you need to get your weight cut, your S&C together and figure out what's going on. Because you are 5'7", you are not super thick. This is not the weight class for you. It's not. But if must, if must. Then you had that 185-pound fight between Cody Brundage, Razak Al-Hassan. There's not much to talk about here. Brundage races for a takedown, just gets owned, whatever. Ends up getting illegal knee in the back, or elbowed in the back of the head. And we get a stoppage, and it ends up being a no contest. Brundage did, I think, try to milk it for a DQ. He did pick up a DQ win over Jacob Malkoun under somewhat similar circumstances. I'm going to say this right now here. A lot of people are like hating on Brundage, like, doesn't have the heart of a champion or whatever. Seriously, people, if Anthony Smith had Cody Brundage's DQ heart, he actually would be a champion. And Aljamain Sterling, of course, got this same crap while winning the belt against Peter Yan. So I think it's ridiculous. Now, to be clear, would I be disappointed if Brundage were to be let go from the UFC, either because of the end of his contract or cut or whatever? I would not have a problem with it because he's not very good. He's not good. But that's the irony is people are like, no. You know what's keeping Cody Brundage from a title shot? It's not his lack of physicality. It's not his lack of striking defense. It's not that he gets hit really, really hard. No. It's the fact that he won't fight through a foul. That's the problem, which is ridiculous. It doesn't really do anything for Razak Al-Hassan because he's a one-round fighter and he kicked the guy's butt in the first round. That's not new. that's there. There's nothing really there. I didn't like this fight matchup because number one, it was at altitude. I would never bet. I would never book Razak Al-Hassan at altitude. One, and number two, what are we learning here? Like, I think regardless of the result here, we wouldn't have learned anything. The only thing that would have been surprising, the only outcome of this fight that would have been weird, well, two, would be like if Razak Al-Hassan for 15 minutes like just dominated him positionally and did not finish him. Or if Brundage had like knocked him out in the first round. So I didn't really get the point of this booking. I didn't really get the point of it being on the main card. So I've already said more about it than I probably should. The rematch is somewhat likely, but I would prefer to see something like Razak Al-Hassan against Michael Oleksiejczuk. I think that would be dope. And for Brundage, I don't care It's not an issue of heart or whatever. It's not an issue of the fouls. It's just, I don't really know what he tests people for. He's just not good. Joshua Van versus Charles Johnson. I had Van up 2-0, but they were very close rounds. I mean, particularly the first round, I think you could easily give to Charles Johnson. It's just, I thought that Van was landing the cleaner, more damaging shots, even though he was outlanded 44-22 in the first round, 46-27 overall, but that was the significant strike numbers. But the second round, I thought Van was taking over, and I'm like, all right, he's going there. He's getting some good body work in. He's pressuring Johnson. He's smothering his kicking game. He's doing everything that I expected and I wanted him to do. And then Johnson hits him with a spinning, I think it was an elbow, and rocks Van, and then just uppercuts from hell to put Van down. And Joshua Van with the big, this was his first ever loss, right? 22-year-old kid taking his first L, I do believe. No, second L. He was 10-1 coming into the fight. Who's he lost to? He lost to a Devin Jackson back in 2021 in his third pro fight. It was Jackson's debut. All right, Jackson's not a sleeper pick to do anything. Yeah, he's 3-2 and has lost his last two. All right. Anyways, and he's 29 years old, so not super young. Anyways, Van I thought was looking good. Like, it's kind of one of those things. Obviously, this is a loss and it hurts him. He was, given a chance to prove that he was somewhere in the rankings picture and did not win. But I think if you watch this fight and up until the knockout, you're left with a fairly positive impression of Van. So we'll see. He's 22. He can regroup from this. He can move on. I'm happy that Charles Johnson gets a big W because he's very underappreciated, I think. But this is a good fight. Go back and watch this. This should have been on the main card. Frankly, I think this should have actually been like the co-main event. Real talk. This is altitude. Go low weight classes. Could have done without the USA chance at the end, but whatever. Apparently there was something with Johnson's coach coming into the fight, but I didn't catch what it was. Anyways, Johnson versus Tadger Ulanbekov, if his weight cut issues are done with, or Matas Nicolau, who has lost 2 in a row and has kind of fallen back into this area, and Van versus Nate Maness would be a fun time. Maness has a range that would obviously replicate some of the challenges that Johnson just gave him, but also with being like, I think, just a worse fighter. Jasmine Jasudavicius versus Fatima Klein. This went like what I expected. Like, Klein did a good job of getting a takedown in the first round, doing some work on the ground, but being a little bit over aggressive and just a little bit too small. Jasudavicius was able to big sister her at times. And of course, Klein's boxing, which looked actually pretty improved here, is not really a path to victory yet. Like, her game is a grappling game. And going into the foot slow Jasudavicius and not taking advantage of the major weakness of Jasudavicius' game was going to be a problem. Jasudavicius got 4 takedowns to her 1. She had 7 minutes and 48 seconds of top control. And as a general statement here, basically just outlanded her in every single round, although not necessarily by significant strikes, because in the third round, Klein outlanded her significant strikes 19-13. But still, I scored all 3 rounds for Jasmine Jasudavicius. Another Twitter highlight here. Jillian DeCourcy, I think, trains with Klein or knows her or whatever. Also, someone over on the Twitter, shout out to Juliana. She knows Fatima Klein as well, so that's pretty cool. But anyways, there was a whole thing with one of the more belligerent Twitter users giving DeCourcy a bit of a hard time about this, how Klein should not have accepted this fight because this somehow ruins her. I don't think it does at all. She accepted a short notice fight with a ranked fighter, might I add. Jasudavicius is number 13 at 125, the weight class above her. She went out there. She looked fine. Her striking looked good. And I think the grappling aspects of the game, which is very clearly she was fighting someone bigger and stronger than her, which makes sense because she's a 115er. I don't understand any kind of the critique here. Plus, the UFC does not take no well when it comes to answers. So you get a short notice opportunity and it's not going to kill you. Yeah. I mean, in a perfect world, I would like this to not be the case, but we live in the world we do. And I think that was the right move. Anyways, Jasuda Vicious versus Vivi Araujo in a rebooking would be the idea. And Klein versus somebody coming off a Contender Series would be good because let her cook. She is a very, very promising fighter, 24 years of age, legit prospect. Let's do it. Montel Jackson melted Damon Blackshear. I don't really have much else to say about that. Apparently I didn't actually do a next opponent here. So, all right, we're gonna do this live. We doing it live. What do I think is next for Montel Jackson and Damon Blackshear? Two fighters I have a lot of time for. So hang on. We are using, if you want to glimpse behind the window, we use a lot of stuff. I use basically the Tapology rankings to look for it. So Jackson, who's riding a 5-fight winning streak, definitely should be going up. And Pedro Munoz is an option. Vinicius Oliveira is an option. Adrian Yanez is an option, but damn it. Yanez versus Peyton Talbot is a fight that I'm still very much in favor of. So we'll skip that one. I'll go with Vinicius Lockdog Oliveira. Like, it's not, I'm not a big believer in Oliveira, but like he is riding a 4-fight winning streak, including having beaten Ricky Simone recently. So why not? And then for Damon Blackshear, I think I'll probably be a little bit less kind to him if I'm honest. He has lost 2 in a row to Mario Bautista and Montel Jackson. It's time for a step back. You could do something like Tony Gravely, but I want someone up and coming. Do you do Rinya Nakamura? I don't think so. I think that's a bit of a step up for Rinya Nakamura. You could do John Matsumoto. John Matsumoto has some appeal. But I think what I'm going to go with is nothing's really singing to me. Not quite yet. There's no one that really fits right where I want him. Honestly, it's a bit weird. You know what? Screw it. We'll go with the Rinya Nakamura fight. Boom. There you go. Rinya Nakamura versus Damon Blackshear. It's a little bit of a tricky fight for Nakamura. A little bit not what I was looking for, but still. Luana Santos crushed Maria Agapova. Got a tap out for your rear naked choke on the panic tap. I've got Santos against Ivana Petrovic and Agapova. Get rid of her. Here's the thing. I feel for Agapova, who apparently is like homeless and stuff and the victim of abuse and so on. And I get it. I understand. But this is a woman who has fairly legitimate claims of threatening, harassing, and engaging in physical contact with training partners outside the gym. And that's a huge problem. Combined with the fact that, probably because of the roughness of her upbringing and her living circumstances, she's not fighting very well. She panics. She's got a lot of physical talent and everything, but she is a 27-year-old lady who, I don't know, needs to figure out the mental side of the game. So I got nothing. Like, bye. Bye, Felicia. Josh Friend versus Andre Petroski was Josh Friend just kind of getting big brothered by Petroski, which is weird because he's huge. I was so surprised that Friend was like the favorite on some books for this fight. Dude is, I mean, I get it. Petroski has bad cardio and we're at altitude, but like he fights through it. And Frem is just not very good. Like everything I said about Cody Brundage is kind of effectively true of him. There was some heat given to Petroski for not pulling off a arm triangle. I think it was in the first round where he basically just kept mount position instead of finishing it. Dean Thomas was, I believe, fairly not happy with it. But like, it was a predominantly grappling affair. Petrosky got the win. I've got him against Marc-Andre Barrio. I've got Fremd against Dusko Todorovic, who is kind of the weirdest fighter. I've kind of realized this because I have a lot of matchups for Todorovic, despite the fact that he's not good. It's kind of weird, but like I guess that's middleweight for you. Finally, we get to Evan Elder versus Darius Oliveira. Evan Elder picking up an arm triangle, which led to a number of arm triangle attempts in the subsequent fights that no one pulled off. But Flowers was weird and doing a lot of like lead leg kicking stuff and not really landing a lot. And it did, I think it unsettled Elder enough, but like Elder was landing some shots and then Flowers gassed out horrendously. One of the worst shot takedowns I think you'll ever see from somebody who's not intending to pull guard came in the second round. It was so much. Anyways, Elder ends up in top position. He gets the mount and then gets the arm triangle, like I said. So there you go. Elder versus Rafa Garcia would be cool, and I have no use for Flowers. He's very, very unstructured. Like he could be a good fighter. He's got the like physical ceiling to be reasonable, but he partners that with just a complete lack of any kind of structured MMA game, and he's easily tapped. He's easily hurt. He has cardio issues, and that's pretty much it. So check out the description down below for my links to my gaming stuff, my social medias, and all that kind of good fun. What is up next week? UFC Fight Night. Lemos versus Jandiroba. Oh, yeah, this is not a good card. Lemos versus Jandiroba is actually a pretty cool fight, but like Brad Tavares versus the Iron Turtle. I love the Iron Turtle, but the Iron Turtle in a co-main event against Brad Tavares. Steve Garcia, Suo Choi, Kurt Hallbaugh versus Kaden Krzyzewski, Cody Durden, Bruno Silva. That's a good fight. I like that fight. Duho Choi is back against Bill Algeo. It's not bad. Hyder Emil versus Jung Young Lee. Brian Kelleher, Cody Gibson. It's kind of pointless. Miranda Maverick versus Diana Barboza. Why is that so far down the card? Maverick's like borderline ranked. Anyways, Loic Radzhabov versus Trey Ogden. Oh, God, why? Luana Carolina versus Lucy Pudilova and Mohammed Usman versus Thomas Peter. Why? That is a bad card. Oh, boy. All right. Check out the links down below. That's all. I'll see you next time.